everybody. Good morning and good evening. Welcome to today's webinar on generative AI and manufacturing. We're going to go over existing use cases in AI in manufacturing and then transition on how generative AI is beginning to be used in manufacturing. I'm Craig Hodges with Softura, and I'm going to be your moderator today. We have with us today JJ, and JJ is from The Next Step. The Next Step is a group of consultants that are experts in sales, operations, marketing, and product development. They help manufacturing businesses of all size grow and succeed, tailoring their strategy to your specific needs, whether you want to improve your marketing, sales, operations, product development. They work closely with you and your team to understand your goals and drive results. With me today from Softura, I have Frank Brasky. Frank's one of our lead software architects, and Frank's been working with AI solutions for the past 12 years. He has a wealth of experience in multiple industries, including manufacturing. The presentation today is intended to be interactive, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A and chat while the presentation is ongoing. I'll work to get the questions into the presentation as they come in. With that, it's time to talk about the real automation revolution. So Frank, if you want to put up the poll and let's get her going.
All right. So real quick, we'll get a basic understanding of what is your experience level in this area. And it's just two simple questions. Want to understand what is your personal experience with AI in manufacturing, and then also what is your organization's experience with AI. Looks like we got some beginners. We've got some experts. Okay. Got some folks getting started. Some curious. Folks are using it in production. Okay. All right. And then the second question. If people are just beginning, planning implementation, perfect. Okay. With that, you can continue to vote in the poll. Like Craig said, I am Frank Brasky. I'm the chief evangelist here. And earlier this week, we put a poll in LinkedIn that asked about, what do you think is the most significant impact of AI in the manufacturing sector? And that's where people said, we think it's going to boost productivity and efficiency. When you think of AI, a lot of people got their first introduction to AI with, from science fiction, things like the HAL 9000 in 2001. And over the last, I'd say it's been about 10, 15 years, we've been introduced to more and more, smart agents or different types of artificial intelligence, all the way from Watson, who was able to beat the world's Jeopardy champion, to the various smart speakers like Alexa and Google and Siri, that really are useful, but they're not incredibly intelligent. And it really wasn't until about 3 years ago this organization called OpenAI came out with this thing called a GPT, or a general purpose pre-trained transformer. And they had put that out for about 1.5 years, and not a lot had happened until they came out with this product called ChatGPT. And basically they said, hey, here's how you use this technology and what it can do with you. Because it was really different than a lot of these other technologies in that it had this generative capability, in a kind of a general purpose reasoning engine. Out of that, you ended up with companies like Microsoft investing over $11 billion into Bing, and of course, Google has been working on its AIs for many years. They launched Bard, and of course, there's others like Claude and etc. But Microsoft, after their big investment into Bing, ended up bringing a lot of the technology internal and making it available to everyone, potentially for free, using Microsoft Bing. They've rebranded that Microsoft Copilot. Now, we've seen Google has come out and they renamed their Bard product Gemini, and xAI, which is Elon's original idea, has come out with their concept called Grok. And of course, there are many, many more. There's literally hundreds of implementations of AIs out there.
Hey Frank, question. Yeah. What do you suspect the 2023 startups spending on artificial intelligence in the billions? How many billions do you think was spent in 2023 on startups?
Oh, I would say it's definitely in the billions, but I don't have a good answer for that.
Over 21.
21 billion.
Just in 2023.
just in 2023. That's not bad. So I guess that probably doesn't include the 11 billion from Microsoft that was in 2022. So
Yeah.
that sounds right. Um, yeah, and so the difference between AI, AI is really not intended to be an autopilot just yet. First there was the autopilot, and but now we've got a kind of a new metaphor that JJ will tell us a little about.
You know what I like most from Microsoft? It's how they name it, Copilot. Because at the end, in the past, the autopilot is what we thought the AI gonna be, like doing the work for us. But now as a copilot, we understand better that it's here to help us, not to substitute us. So our goal in this kind of evangelizations, like praise that we're doing about AI, sorry, is that we need to change the mindset. The AI is going to take all our jobs and all of this. What we need to think is AI will take the machine out of the human. Like it can extend our capabilities. And here, technically, what we're thinking is how AI will going to automate this repetitive task, analyze vast amount of data that right now probably our team takes long time to process, and provide real-time insights or trends that currently we're not seeing in an easy way. So what is important here, using the AI as our co-pilot, is the human expertise is still essential on these strategic decisions that we're going to take with this. So what's going on right now? We need to program AI just to help us to provide information that will guide us to take the decision. And we're going to spend more time doing the things that are going to bring value to the company instead of just doing repetitive activities that maybe will just don't have more than just a production, and we can just put that in that robot. So what we can think here is how this is going to make us fall in the valley of deception. And Frank, I know that you are an expert explaining this part, but it's more like how we done it, how are we seeing AI in the future and where we are sit right now.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot of hype out there about AI, but a lot of companies that have been early adopters, some of them have fallen into what we call the trial of disillusionment or the valley of deception. And this is all really based on psychological work done by Virginia Satter back in 1967. She came up with this model of change, and it's kind of morphed and changed over time and been adopted by some of the larger consultings out there. Essentially, the way it works is you've got some technology trigger. In this case, generative AI. This thing called ChatGPT or DALL-E or Midjourney or others. And that's where a group of nerds like me, get together and say, hey, let's make this technology. And then, once it starts to kind of catch on, it gets to this what we call the peak of inflated expectations, where everybody's starry-eyed. People are just throwing money at it, and literally some people are just kind of going crazy with things that are out there. And if you're an early NVIDIA stockholder, you're quite happy that this is going on right now because that stock's just going crazy. But at the end of the day, once kind of all the hype is buzzed down, and then you actually try to implement it yourself, and this is where a lot of folks are right now. They're like, hey, this is not exactly working like I expected it was, and sometimes you feel quite sad about how much money you've invested in something that didn't quite turn out the way you might expect. But that's kind of where some of these technologies are, but not all of them. In fact, I would say most people are starting to be on the slope of enlightenment, where you're starting to realize, okay, I kind of understand the pros and cons of this, and now I see how this can apply in my world and what we're going to do with it. Hopefully, getting us to that Zen-like stage, the plateau of productivity, where everything's happy and the investments are paying off the way you expect, and the world is like we always thought it was going to be when we were kids, right? Everything's going to be better. And so I mentioned, consulting companies have taken this on. Well, one of the more famous ones is Gartner. They've got this hype cycle for manufacturing operations. This is from July of 2023. And it's interesting because if you go and you look at some of these key pieces they put out here, some of these they figure are not going to be, it's going to be more than 10 years before people start to see returns on that. And that's the rate of change that's going on right now. It's going super fast, and we've been working with companies, that are already receiving positive ROIs and have gotten the benefits out of AI and machine learning, et cetera. And we'll go through some case studies of that today. So pull up the next poll. And this one will be on. What do you think will be the impact of AI in manufacturing? And we won't take too long in this. I just kind of want to get a feel for what people are thinking. Okay. And while everybody's doing that, we'll go ahead and get on to the next one.
So now that we're thinking about like this valley of deception, it's important to see that AI is powerful but not perfect. So there's always a risk to to fail in the process. And here's what we need to learn from the experiences from others. So we need to make first a differentiation of how AI used to be and how is now. So currently, all of us heard about Gen AI. So this is the AI that can create content by itself and can communicate with you with large models of language, meaning in the same way as you talk. Doesn't matter the language, you can communicate and interact with it. So what happens and what is the difference between the traditional AI and this AI? In the traditional one, you were in charge to train the tool, to train the robot, and the robot will just interact and give you trends or insights or anything that you will request to it as much as you train to it. So it depends on your own data, it depends on your own feedback to the tool. Well, Gen AI, because it's first interacting with the internet and also interacting with multiple sources, can give you alternative path to take, or can just consider other actions or other factors like economics, politics, or what's going on in the world, even what is the projection for the next 5 years. So now that we know this difference between these two moments, let's think how things can go wrong. So let's think that you have like a factory and you had to create these screens for cell phones, and you are not using Gen AI to train the robot. You're just using your own data. So this robot or this intelligence, what we're gonna do is check which screens are good and which are not good, a quality control. What happens if you base all the training of the bot in your own data? If you didn't took the right photo, if your photo it's like it has certain type of bias because of the angle of the photo, the type of the camera, or even the light of your own factory. Imagine that you took all the photos damaged like in a perfect white background, and in the factory, of course, you have like a yellow or white bulb on top of the machine that will affect the screen, and then like the reflection, and then the camera, the power of the camera is like is not good because of course you didn't train it to have a bulb above you. So what is happening here? The risk of undertrain the system or not to connect it with the right sources or enough sources can give you bad results. And then it's when people start to think that, okay, this is not what I think is going to work, or the AI is not thinking as supposed to think, right? So what type of takeaways can just take from this? Number one, you need to identify first when the AI fits better. So if we think about this, and Frank, I think that maybe you can just help me with the next slide.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I'm just thinking about you're talking about the quantity and amount of data. In this case, you'd actually have to give it examples of all the different ways that these little widgets could go bad or would be bad. And I'm reminded of an early project that I did, and this was literally 20 plus years ago in a chip factory where we had to go around and collect samples of thousands of different kinds of potato chips to train the system on what was a good chip and what was a bad chip. But now with generative AI, I can literally go in, and I just did this earlier, just to say, create a grid of 50 good and 50 bad chips. And it literally just created this on the fly. So you can see as an example, I don't have to give it, I don't have to go and physically take pictures of all these different things. It already kind of has a sense of what those look like and how we could grade them. So that's how generative AI can help with that. And so, JJ was asking about, does AI fit here? I think she can go back and explain the Kano model now.
Sure. And this you brought like something pretty important here, that sometimes we think that data can be only numbers in an Excel file. And here data, it's photos. And you can imagine how many variations of chips. Never a chip is exactly the same as the other one, right? So train a robot will be really hard on that part. So one of the main things that we need to think when we are going into the path of AI is, does AI fit here? Sometimes we heard like people in their companies trying to solve all the problems and everything with AI without really thinking in the impact that this can cause or the resources that this needs. So one of the recommendations that I have here is, let's go on the things that we know to do better. You can use a kind of model just to identify what are the areas that you need to work with AI in your company. And let's start identify and prioritize what features or functionalities are needed right now and which ones are going to be needed in the long term. Because here's something really important. With technology in general, we have a challenge that it's over just like economical resource. It's also the generational and the adaptation from the people that are going to use it. So you want to start with the right feed by giving a good experience to those who are going to help the AI to get trained and those who are going to use it in their daily activities. So the kind of model will help you to identify how to start just to go through that barrier in your company, and also just to have in the short term big wins, and at the same time allowing you just to keep growing constantly. So once you identify where is the best place to apply it, we need to go under like what is the type of model they're going to follow, like traditional versus Gen AI. And here, if you can click on the next one, here you need to identify or like know that to train an AI, you need enough amount of data, quantity and quality, giving it context, explaining to the robot, and have this constant feedback. Because if you don't interact with it, it's going to happen like in the previous case. You're going to undertrain it. And with Gen AI, as you bring on the example of the chips, you can have millions of variations of the chips just to train what is good and what is not. Next
Right.
one that you. Mhm.
Yeah, and say when it comes to the amount of data, a lot of companies simply don't have enough data to be able to do the kind of training that they need to do, because they're just one particular space of data that's out there in the marketplace. Well, the marketplace is much bigger and has a lot more data. And so one of the things that when people ask me, how big is the data that's being used, they're literally using trillions upon trillions of data points to create the general AI, the general purpose AI that's out there being utilized today. And so if you just took your training manuals and just use those as your training material, it's not going to be able to get all the nuances and understanding of all the languages to make that available to everyone. But if you add your personal training information plus that which is out there via the GPTs like Microsoft's and Google's and whatnot, then you'll actually get a much more powerful, more robust answer.
Yeah.
Frank,
And also,
is that perhaps why they call it general purpose?
It is why we call it general purpose, yes. And we're not there to what people call the AGI, the advanced general purpose AI, but we're getting close, and we're much closer than people thought we were just 18 months ago.
just imagine all the possibilities to make projections and the scenarios in the future with Gen AI. Well, and this is something important too, like adapting AI to the real world. Like you need to take in consideration different things like this kind of impact. And I think that you were like telling me one day, Frank, about story about how the temperature and the humidity of a place can impact in the production, right? So imagine this applied with AI. If you don't train it to adapt, for example, to the temperature of each place, you can have like under-trained tool again, and you need like at the end need it to be accurate so people will trust on it.
Right. Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the failure section.
Yes, I know that. And the main important thing here is let's take one step at a time. Don't try to run with AI. I know that sometimes people think like, no, but there's ChatGPT. You only put a prompt there, like prompt like an instruction, and they're gonna give you the answer. So let's think really what is needed and how much train this needs just to have the right answer or going to the right path. So like if we think all of this, let's say, let's check now, how is the current state of manufacturing using AI right now? So let's think the AI, the universe of the AI is this iceberg. Like what keeps the iceberg like up also, it's all the things that's under the water. And what is under the water is like what people barely talks about is the data, all the visuals, images, content, etc. that you can collect, and even predictive models already exist and how you can just use them in your own business. So when you have like all this information, you can start to use the machine learning and the Gen AI. How? Like you feed the content and interact with the bots just to teach them and make them learn and to avoid certain type of errors or to go in certain type of paths. And then with Gen AI that we all know, but probably ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot, for example, you can create and even interact with these models to say like, hey, what else do you need to know for me just to train you? Like, what am I missing? What type of question you will do, like if you would like to understand better this topic. So these models that took like what 10, 12, 15 years to be built because other people at this point like created tons of data from the internet and just be able to run on those give the was the base or the first step for now more advanced features like digital twins. That means that you can make simulations and you don't have now to do it in real life. You can do it with a computer, with the AI. Internet of Things that probably all of us are like already using in our daily lives, or computer vision. So there are companies out there that they are already using all of this and they already created new models and new tools for everyone in manufacturing. Companies like Neurala, that, for example, they're already making quality control based on AI. So they are already built a model that they only needs to be fed with your information and complement with Gen AI just to allow you to make your quality control check there. Or other companies like ABB from Switzerland that they design a bot who can identify individual units and pick them based on the instructions that you give them. So can you imagine how this is going to impact the manufacturing, or like it's already impacting to those that are already using it? So I know that we're going to talk later about some of these cases like FANUC, but we need to see mirror in real life. How can I use this in my company? So we have, for example, computer vision. Computer vision is like you use the AI to identify elements and take decisions based on what it's identifying. And like between 50 or 60% of our brain is dealing with visual information. So it's really tough for us just to manage all of that. Now put a machine doing this. And companies like Tesla, Samsung, Bosch are already using this in their assembly line. So for example, they can control the line speed based on how the operators and assemblers are working on it. So you will not have like any accident or reduce errors in the process. And they also like control the movements of the robots based on how everything is moving. And this automatically increase efficiency. Other applications that you can see is like identifying, the MRBs when you are like receiving all the products from your vendors, which is your suppliers. So you can analyze and identify images of how you're receiving the product. In the moment when someone opens the door of the car and just put out the product, you can really see, hey, that product is damaged. The box is ripped or like it's not good. You can immediately with an AI send like like an alert and say, now it's time just to ask for the warranty. This is the evidence. This is what happened. And this application identify just with a machine can imagine in surface. You can imagine in how they can analyze like how they can make the process faster, reducing errors, and have a consistent report. That's something that sometimes we have to deal with, how one person explains something and how the person explains the other one, how the machine will do it. And then if we think about impact on shipping or quality control, and I'm pretty sure that here you have a better example than me, but you can imagine how this can control and have augmented reality just to see if you're doing your job in the right way. And I'm pretty sure you have some examples here, but one of the companies that uses this a lot is Siemens and Bosch. And technically they are like, they've been implemented this in what, 264 places around the world. And their company is just using it as part of their processes. So maybe you can just share other example, Frank, about how this can be used.
Yeah. Another case is with digital twins and simulations. A lot of people are confused by what digital twins is actually referring to, and it's literally the ability to have a software or a digital implementation of a real world thing. So traditionally, if you had to go and wanted to reconfigure your production line or your shipping lines, etc., you would have to take that part of the facility out of service for some period of times. You'd have to do it on the third shift or over the weekend or something like that, and it would take a lot of time, literally hundreds of hours, sometimes thousands of hours, to move things around to make that happen. Well, now with a digital twin, you can actually go and model that electronically with your CAD and PLMs and go into a MES simulation and actually say, well, what about this? And what's different about this now is the actual system itself can give you optimizations and tell you different types of examples that you can use. So these are just different looks and feels of different layouts, and you can get actual times and constraints, and you can also try different scenarios. As a lot of people have experienced over the last several years with the supply chain disruptions and issues and lack of certain supplies and materials, being able to actually simulate those things and put them into your system to say, well, how can I deal with that? That's what digital twins and simulation allows you to do.
Also, that can help a lot. If you have the Gen AI in this, that you can even predict like what type of product we should produce more in the next year. And they can just run you models and tell you, hey, if you use this combination, this is the revenue you're expecting. And if you just do this other combination and you produce more about this product, this is how you are, there is expectation that you can have after it.
Other ways it's being used is in augmented reality. A lot of people aren't quite sure what mixed reality or augmented reality really are. It's the ability to take a virtual image and superimpose it over the world. And in the aerospace industry, it takes up to 2 years to get a trained engineer up to speed on how to do things on a particular aircraft. And there's lots of manuals and it takes a lot of time and money to get that person up to speed. Well, now with capabilities like this, you can actually see where is that screw or bolt that it's asking me to turn. And you have the ability to kind of triangulate within your environment on your actual engines and parts where things should actually be. So they've been able to, one of the customers has been able to actually take down their cost of getting people up to speed by a factor of a half. So they're really seeing the return on investment quickly. And it takes some time to set these things up. But what's fascinating now is with the generative AI, you're able to go in and actually read information to be able to do things like not only help you work on pieces of equipment, but also go around and inspect your facilities and figure out the difference between the as designed world and the as built world. There's sometimes there's a difference between the blueprints and the actual end result product. And so using these technologies, you can go and actually look at them and actually provide feedback back into the CAD systems and the PLM systems to help you with maintenance. And so using those CAD drawings, customers are going in and saying, okay, let's actually take some of these mechanical procedures that we do and let's record them so that we can then play them back later and figure out ways that we can optimize, for quality or for speed or for serviceability, et cetera.
And I think this is one of the best examples of how people think sometimes they're going to be replaced, and not at all. If you notice this, like they're just like expanding their capacities and their resource, like how hard is just to get someone full trained on something with AI. Oof, you're reducing hours of training here.
Yeah, my favorite example is that math that they just showed. Even I would have a hard time remembering how to do some of that math. Well, it just does it for me because it sees and knows that I have to do it. So the idea is that we've been doing predictive maintenance for decades now. Well, now we can take that predictive maintenance and then augment you in real time where you are. And the idea is to really help those frontline workers become hands-free, so they have their hands available to do their jobs, as well as then and keep their heads up, so they're no longer putting their nose in a book trying to figure out how to do something. It's there.
I have to add something there. I'm so sorry for that. But for example, Bosch, like in the past, they used to have like this maintenance, and sometimes like the person has to stop for it. Now they don't have that anymore. They have like scheduled maintenance because the AI helped them and tell them, hey, this in the next month or like in 3 months, you have to do this and this procedures, this is a specific date. And they even like the information is based on what's going on in the factory, like multiple factors, vendors, suppliers, energy, etc. So it can give you the best moment to execute things.
Yeah, a great example of that is like with Fanuc painting. If you've ever gone and worked in a paint shop, there's a lot to be done with respect to, controlling the environment, making sure there's no particulates in the air, that you've got the proper temperature and humidity and whatnot. And you also, when you're painting with a particular object, you don't want to go over it too many times, or you'll end up with runs and different types of aberrations that are costly and don't look very nice. And so Fanuc designed a system that actually will go in and scan a part. So instead of having to painstakingly go in and take the CAD files from a particular part and then train the robot all the different ways it has to move in order to do it, they've now used combining computer vision with augmented reality and actually knowing where the robot is and the part, scanning that part, and then figuring out what the best path is before it actually paints. And it makes for a very smooth paint experience, irrespective of what the part is. So they can go in and as they add a new part to the line, they don't have to stop the system and say, okay, well, now we have to retool and reprogram all of this. It can actually go and learn that on the fly.
And that's my favorite part. Like you don't have to program it and you can just leave it 24/7 there.
Yeah.
Technically. So once we are seeing all these companies that we just show you, sometimes you can think, oh, okay, they're way ahead of me. Like they've been doing this for years. But this is the thing, like each company has its own journey. And the key thing is to identify how we can tailor these tools that already exist to your business. And that's what was mentioned at the beginning, the Kano. So what we're going to do here is just going to give you some tips or things that you need to take in consideration just to apply this in your company. So before starting, I know Frank is launching here a new poll. What are the obstacles that you see in this path? And I don't know if you have some obstacles so far, Frank, in one of your companies.
Yeah, a lot of times the people say, we didn't plan for the budget. One of the things that we found is when implementing automation and robotics such as this, the actual cost of the tool is really the smallest part of the implementation. And depending on the environment, it can be as little as 20%. So if you have a particular tool that costs you $100,000, you could spend upwards of 500,000 to 100 to $1 million on implementing that tool and integrating it in with your processes, your people, and your other systems. So don't underestimate the need for planning and thinking through how to integrate these products into your processes and services. So I see we got salability. I guess that's for, selling up to the management, fear, culture. It's an interesting thing about the fear we've noticed in the world of automation. Whenever automation and robotics sales have gone up, labor and unemployment has gone down. So it's one of these boom bust things where there's no correlation that says automation has reduced or eliminated people's livelihoods, because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was no such thing as an SEO specialist or a machine learning data scientist working on scalable neural networks. Those things just didn't exist, but now there are all kinds of jobs out there that are remaining unfilled because we're creating new kinds of capabilities in the world.
So some jobs they may change, Frank. Is that what you're saying? You may need to change what you're doing. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in every case that I've been involved in, the people were never fired. They were always repurposed to go do other things. And back to JJ's allusion earlier about taking the robot out of the human, a lot of times the work that they're doing is dangerous or dirty or mundane or dull. And those are exactly the kinds of jobs that you want to have automated. One of the things that's really surprised most people or caught people off guard is the fact that this generative AI can also do some of the higher level creative things. And myself, for example, I have 3 different systems that I use AI literally throughout the day. Microsoft did an interesting study on that said, 67% of all of the users of AI said they were using AI to help them be more productive. And then over 99% of them said they would not they didn't want their AI to be taken away. So the fear out there is not from the general public. Once you feel the benefits of the AI, you never want to not have it. And so I think that's just a mindset that people need to think about. I tend to be an optimist because the world is always changing, and that's just the nature of the world. It's always changing. Things in technology move and change so fast. I've kind of given up on the idea that I'm going to have a skill set for life because every 3 to 6 months I'm learning something new.
I mean, the world moves fast, so we need to keep up with it. And I will say, like, since I use AI in my daily activities, I stopped doing things that I really get frustrated with, and it was just repetitive. Now I just like upload my Excel files and just give instructions, and the AI just make the analysis for me. Just to give you another idea, all the images of this presentation, all of them are in AI. All of them were created by AI.
Yep.
So like now you don't have to go and spend time looking for a photo. Just tell to the AI what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the key things here and how we can just use what the technologies out there in our companies? And here's when we get like the importance of Gen AI. With Gen AI, like you can see in the video, you can technically take all this data and generate new data, unifying them in a place and help make a tool that help you to take decisions. So in this case, for example, you can ask if you feed all this information and the conditions and even the changes of the electricity in your company. If the AI has that information, they can tell you when is the next moment that you need to make maintenance. Or also like you need, hey, what type of product should I produce the next year? And what are the combinations? AI can just give you answers right off the gate as much as you are like interacting with it and training it. Faster answers unlock insights. Sometimes we are like there are things that we do not see just right out of the gate that can take to the analyst a week to collect or to give you a conclusion. It's going to take seconds as soon as you train and put all the information in the tool. And also the main part is drive decisions. It's important here to say that AI is not taking the decision. It's driving decisions, helping you just use your critical thinking, your experience, just to take the best path based on the numbers that it's giving you.
Right. But
So,
ultimately, it's up to you, and that's you'll see the little thumbs up and thumbs down there when we talk about you've got to give it feedback. It's not perfect. It's up to you to let it know, and only by your interacting with it and telling it that it's right or it's wrong will it get better over time.
and that's why it's important, like just to take in consideration certain steps. But at the end, the goal of this is taking the robot out of the human. And here, I know that maybe you can share a little bit more about this example of how a maintenance of a machine or the operation of a machine goes in place with it.
Sure. Yeah, this is a case where this is an old machine that they didn't have any sort of electronic documentation for. They did have a manual SOP that they used to go and manage it. And so rather than spending dozens of hours or hundreds of hours going in and electronically CADing this thing and building the guides to go with it, they went ahead and did a little prototype to scan in the actual machine and then read that SOP and actually upload it to the GPT and let the GPT come up with an answer. So now it's, and this is in real time. This is how much time it took to read that document and then understand what is the process for operating it. And you'll notice it's detecting the different tags for the different switches and knobs and buttons and things. And so now it's saying, okay, you got to turn that lever. Now you need to switch that toggle up. Now here's another place where you've got to turn that toggle up. And it figured this out by reading that document. And if your jaw isn't dropping I can't help you. It's pretty amazing what it's able to do just based on that text information.
And I love something that you had in the previous video, that the AI is doing the modern part, like the actual part, and the machine is still like from the past. Like you don't have to change everything. You just need to train the right robot just to help you to go through it. So one of the first steps that you can take is building a strong foundation. And with this, we mean to prepare the data, generate data with Gen AI, and also have all the information from your company, trying to put it together, clean it, and the same way as we sometimes build an ERP, where you have to design the key codes between the different databases, just do that with the AI, helping to understand how your business works, your own language, your own terms in your business. And super important, and it's one of the challenges that everyone will see once they're implementing it, keep the information safe. The security considerations are key here. We don't want a leak of information. And here's super key in your companies. Like if anyone is using AI, just to stop using the free tools outside, putting private information in servers and feeding out others there. Just like start to build like something behind the wall, behind the firewall. Then once you have your base and you say, okay, this is, remember when I mentioned Kano, right? Like choose the considerations, what features or what to tackle first. Prepare the data and then choose the right tool. You don't have to invent the wheel. There's already tools outside that you can adopt and adapt to your business and avoid hours of and a lot of money and resources trying to build it from zero. You can just work with companies already 12 years ahead of us, just to take all their investigations, all their learning, and apply it to our business. And this will help us to plan our budget. Not only the budget that is considered, like how much the tool cost, also the trainings and the adoption of it. Once you have these two things, you choose your tool, you have your data, it's moment to master the prompt. And just to put everyone in the same page, prompt is instruction that you give to the AI just to execute a tool. It's like this list of criteria, instructions, how you guide them and teach them what they're doing and what is this data. So here it's important, we call it prompt engineering, those are small tweaks. And for those tweaks, you need to interact with it. And this is when we take back the phrases that we're saying at the beginning. Then you ask to the AI, like, what else do you need to know? Is any other consideration I'm not giving to you? Can you just like take sources of what you're like, the suggestion they're giving me based on what are you saying this? So you can
So
interact.
JJ,
Yeah,
I had a
sorry, go
quick
ahead.
question for you on that. And so my question is, I've heard a lot of people mention that the generative AI doesn't seem to be consistent. It doesn't offer consistent answers. What is your response to that?
Well, it will be consistent as much as we give consistent instructions. And
Ah,
here's super important, like to have to tweak it to avoid the AI to misinterpret things. You know, something so simple as a comma can change a thing, a sentence.
right.
So
So
this is critical
we're
here.
probably the ones that are inconsistent.
Correct. And one other thing is, you know, have you heard like asking never hurts anyone?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
why don't you ask to the AI, what did you understood of this information?
Wow, that's a
And
great
then
question.
you just can say like, well, this information means this. Take this learning and apply it to this next database. What do you understand with this database? And that's how you train it. I always say to my coworkers, AI is like it's like having a baby that will grow super fast and will just become like an adult in a couple of months. As much as you take the time, sit with it and teach it.
Got
And
it. Thank you.
it's very persistent and very eager
Yes,
to help you.
yes. He wants to be like you. You just show them how to be like you.
Like Frank and I with lacking hair or
Oh, come on. Well, and that's something that comes back to this point is like you need to run beta testings and remember the beginning. And one of the comments here, like on the challenges, like the culture, how people will adopt it because people has this fear of this going to take my job. Go back to the canon, identify what are the functions that will help them to be better in their jobs and start there. So the same people that right now is afraid of it can start to interact with it, and they're going to give you the feedback. As much as they give you the feedback, because of course they will try to destroy the AI, they will try to break it. So that's what you want. They make it to break it, because that's how the AI will learn. And when you have this constant testings, the same people who's afraid of it at the beginning will be the people who will just be the promoters of it later, because they're going to say to other one, I just do my job faster or easier. I don't have more problems on this anymore. And here I know, Frank, you have the best examples of fail.
Yeah, one of my favorites is back to the painting example. There was a company that had purchased a set of equipments to actually do some painting, and it was a Swedish-based company. And their instructions and their manuals and everything, were great, and everything worked perfectly at their factory in their location. But when they shipped it to, South America, with the high levels of humidity and other issues that they had, all of a sudden the equipment wasn't working. And that's because they didn't have the consistent environment with the right temperature, the right humidity, et cetera. So understanding the context and all those qualitative aspects is really important to making sure that, that project or that endeavor is going to be successful. So the key here is to kind of embrace those failures and to celebrate them. Don't fire the people that have learned all these lessons. If you go to talk to an angel investor or something, if you can't tell them about 3 or 4 epic failures, they don't want to invest in you because they feel like you don't know anything. So don't belittle the folks that are learning the most in your organizations, because oftentimes they're the ones that are finding and failing more often than not.
Yes, and one of the things here, and I like what you said, I don't fire the people who learn this stuff. Here's key, that your users should be, you have to test this with 3 types of users: the ones who are creating it, the ones who will use it, and the experts. You want experience there, because AI will not substitute that. We know that not to go to that path, and we're going to teach someone else not to go to that path, because we follow in that path, right? And there's a problem there. So that's what you want, that experience. So the AI will bring value to them. And of course, once all of this are getting tweaked, because there's a loop between the 3 and the 4. Like, you test it, feedback, you tweak the prompt, test it, feedback, and you keep doing this constantly. Once you say, hey, this is working good, people's giving you the feedback, you're like, no, now it's giving me good answers or working effectively, you already built the confidence with everyone who tried it that this is going to bring value to them. And then you're ready to launch it and take the next step. So you're going to have like this gradual rollout around the company.
Excellent.
So now you know all these things. What is the cost of doing nothing on this? Do you like, if you think about it, there are companies that are 12, 15 years ahead of us on that. There are companies that right now are just like in this race trying to be and implement things with the AI. How do you think going to be the future? And I'm not going to be too far, like 5, 10 years, when some companies start using AI to be more efficient. Can you keep up? Can you just like compete with them? Once that something happens, they already created 20, 40 scenarios how to react to different situations. Even like who win the election, they have a scenarios for that, because the AI can generate it. So if you don't do anything at this point, you're really like going on a path that it can bring other type of problems, like not being competitive, and eventually like a factory closure.
Yep. All right. Well, that's the end of our prepared remarks and things. If anybody has any questions, you can enter them in the chat window or in the Q&A section of the form.
Yeah. So Frank, how do you foresee AI shaping the future of manufacturing in the next decade?
It's going to be very impactful, especially as more and more boomers begin to retire. It'll be an opportunity for us to capture all that wisdom and knowledge and train better AIs to help bring new folks up to speed and learn how to be the best engineers and product developers as possible. There's going to be a lot more adoption. It's only going to get faster. The capabilities are going to continue to get better. And there's going to be really a lot of benefits to be seen throughout, including, for the end user consumers with better, higher quality products, as well as those doing the labor of actually building the products in conjunction with their cobots or collaborative robots. I think it's going to just kind of accelerate. We live in exponential times, and the ability to adapt to this new infrastructure and technology is going to be the difference maker. There's a truism in the technology space that whenever the platforms change or a new technology is invented, the organizations that are able to take advantage of that new technology tend to do very well and dominate in their respective markets.
Well, another question, this is for JJ. Can you share some strategies for building trust in AI systems among your employees and stakeholders?
Well, some of the things that we do currently with our clients is, again, like identify the kernel, and we go first on attack the pain of the users or the possible users. So we just help them to solve the problems easier with AI. Of course, like we give them like a satisfaction right out of the gate in the first testings, like they're more open and willing just to go through other stages with it. Eventually, this is start to go up because, of course, if your operatives go in the good results and get efficient, then the next level has better results and better productivity. And then, of course, what's going on up them? Like, what do you did? How is this going so good now? So if you start with like those small wins for the people, just to adopt them, just to accept it, and once they feel comfortable, you're starting to get ready to get more complex things out of the gate. And people will already willing to invest on it because they see the results in the short term.
So, Frank, another question here. So, what are some common misconceptions or challenges businesses face when implementing AI in manufacturing?
Some misconceptions are that either it's not for them. I have yet to find a scenario where there wasn't something, if you're producing something and you're creating data in that production, you can almost certainly take advantage of AI, both from a machine learning and an analytics and predictive modeling perspective, as well as from a simulation and a generative perspective, being able to make improvements, being able to play what if scenarios and optimize those processes, because there's no factory I've ever been to that's completely 100% optimized to its fullest potential. There is always something else that can be improved. So AI is definitely something that can be utilized in your environment. And it's not just about the actual manufacturing itself. This goes all the way down to, the design, up to interacting with your customers and finding, getting feedback and then deriving new products based on that feedback. You can go in and kind of read your product reviews and look at that product information and actually have a bot or an AI go and suggest to you what your future product roadmap should be based on what information is out there available from a sentiment perspective. Not only are we able to do things in the mathematical space of, quantitative things, we're also now able to do things in the qualitative space of being able to judge people's emotions and what they're, what they're feeling about your product, or even your employees. Are they stressed? Are they anxious? Being able to understand body language. If a person's becoming fatigued, being able to watch that and see it happening, or you see their eyes wandering or being lazy. Not lazy as in a negative sense, but just starting to fatigue. There's opportunities to create safer systems, safer work environments, more productive places where you can spend time doing more of the kinds of creative work that kind of energizes people versus the mundane drudgery that a lot of people just are not particularly used to doing or like doing.
I have a question, one more question for you, Frank, and then I'll have another one for JJ. But so, Frank, what are the high-level steps to getting started with AI?
Really, so we're going to share this presentation, and actually JJ kind of listed out what those high-level steps are. One, start with an understanding of a baseline of your existing foundation. What data do you have available? What data do you need to have available in order to make some of the optimizations that you're looking for? And how can you do that in a secure way? There's a lot of opportunities to improve the connectivity and the movement of information from the operational technology, the OT environments to the IT environments, and vice versa. Of course, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all the security guardrails and the policies and procedures that need to be in place depending on the type of infrastructure you have and what the regulations are. Like if you're, for example, working with ITAR, you got to have air gap systems so you're not letting systems from the outside talk to your internal systems, et cetera. And then two, go out and start collecting that data and then analyzing the data using AI to help you. That's one of the things you can get started today. If you're a Microsoft Windows shop, you can go and use Microsoft Edge, their Internet Explorer, and go to Bing, and you can actually start using GPT and DALL-E for free today. If you just go to bing.com, and you can also go out and use the paid systems. I know in some places they blocked access to things like ChatGPT and other things, but go and encourage folks to do it. Even if you're not going to do it on your corporate systems, try it at home, try it on your personal devices, and see what you can do. In fact, one of the fun things we've done is, said, given this role for this person at this location in this type of an industry, what are some of the ways that they could benefit from using AI? And it'll come through and it'll tell you how others are using it in your same role and position.
Thanks, Frank. And JJ, so in general, do you know any prompt engineering best practices? And I know you guys put together a chatbot there, and I know you had some great examples there.
Well, good things for best practices gonna be first, give the personnel, more than a personality, a role, a specific role to your bot. Like tell them what is their purpose in life and how they should behave. That's one. Other good practice is like always ask them what else they need to know. You can tell them, I want to optimize this process. What do you need to know to optimize this process? And you can just attach the full process that you have, your BP or something, and then let the AI to ask you things. Like that's gonna give you another perspective of what they need to understand. Other one is like use multiple sources. You know that in the bots that you can build, and even with those that Frank was mentioning, you can attach files. You can attach a full manual and just tell them like, based on this manual, how would you do this? So you can just put like all the knowledge you already have, insert it, and if you already give them like a role, an objective, and ask them to make questions to you, then it's gonna be in a really good way. And something called temperature. This is key. The temperature is like how much freedom you give that to the bot to be creative or more safe. If you just don't give any restriction, they're gonna be creative and kind of make up things. But if you put the temperature lower, close to 0, you're telling them go to the safe path. So try to measure and compare results based on different temperatures, gonna help you to take the best path.
Thanks, JJ. And our final question here, and this is for Frank. What role do you see AV, VR, XR technologies playing in enhancing productivity and efficiency within manufacturing processes over the next decade, Frank?
Only the next decade. Okay, so there's a problem, and I should have said this the first time when you asked the decade question. A lot of famous people have said, we tend to overestimate what will happen in the next 2 years, and then we underestimate what will happen in the next 10. And so those that make predictions are always wrong. So I know that going into this, but in the case of AR, VR, and XR. There are so many exciting things happening from, literally from the smart glasses to contact lenses that actually have, displays built into them. So you literally don't have to be one of those glass holes, that people talked about when Google first came out with their goggles. The technology is really starting to become consumerized, and more people are having access to it. And the quality and the speed of the things that caused people to get sick before, sometimes people would experience like a motion sickness because there was a lag between when they moved their head and the screen changed, etc. One of the videos I didn't show was one about surgery that's being used, and things are becoming hyper real time and hyper realistic. So look for super high quality displays that you literally cannot tell that you're not in a particular environment, including haptic body suits. So you can tell, if you're doing repetitive injuries, they can tell you you're using your back incorrectly, or you need to be using your legs more. Having little vibrations, like things like your watch telling you, hey, you're in an environment with too much noise. You need to put your ear protection in, etc. So as we go through, I just want to say, thank you all. We've got a QR code here you can scan to book a complimentary consultation, gather documentation, and engage with us. That'll help you set up a half-hour conversation with Craig. You can also call the next step directly at 612-321-8724, and there's Softura as well. And with that, I would say, JJ, thank you very much, and Craig, thank you as well, and thank you for everybody that's attending. And then my last little poll here would be, how do we do?
Well, no, thanks to you guys for inviting me this time, and I hope like everyone take great takeaways from this and start using AI in their companies.
Thank you, JJ, and thank you everybody for joining. My name's Craig Hodges, and this is Softura and the next step. You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.